One of the things that fascinates me about the comic book community on here, all the people that watch these videos, make these videos, comment on these videos, talk on Twitter, on Facebook, now on Elo, and a couple other things, what's always fascinated me is that the only absolute about this community is that everybody got here on the same road. And what put them on that road? It was comic books. Now there's different roads on how we got here and how you got to the hobby and the collecting, and that's one of the things that's probably one of the only differences. But again, the only thing that's in common with all of us to begin with is the comic books as a hobby. A lot of people have come in because video games have pretty much sucked for 6 years now, and they decided to want another hobby. And then there's people like me, going way back to where I feel very lucky because these things were around and all over my house when I was a kid. I mean, there were bags, paper bags of stuff, and magazines laying around, and pulp novels just everywhere. And here's some of the actual books going way back. This is New Gods #1. Jack Kirby scared the hell out of me. Here's Losers. Our Fighting Forces number 161. Kirby scared the hell out of me when I was like 4 and 5 years old. I mean, just look at this stuff. All this black and the blockiness and the weird colors and the demons and how he drew people and the weird blues and his blocky style. And then there was like things like this sticking around. This is my replacement, but this is one of my stepdad's first books that I sat there and was just fascinated with. Guardians of the Galaxy and space, and there's a nuclear bomb and time travel, and this dude who doesn't have a bottom half, it's a machine. I can still use the words that I used back then because I remember this stuff. And then it came to time to where I finally got to a drugstore when we all piled up in the car with my parents and some of their friends, and I ran in and had some change and ended up buying one of my first. This is probably the first comic book I bought with my money in 1979. All right. So the way that I ended up collecting and stuff was, a very long road, if that makes any sense, because of the way comics had a stigma back then. And really that stigma has not been gone very long, and it is still around in places. There's no doubt about that. But it's nothing like it used to be still at the same time. Okay, so the reason I'm going that way about it, between being an older collector and the new people coming in and the road that got here and what we all have in common, is Ghostcritic did his question of the week, and this is a response video to it. And his question, I'll put a link down, go back and watch it. His question was, I think, a little unintentionally vague, but I got the gist of what he was asking. And basically what he was saying is that after sort of watching a trend in the way people are making videos and stuff, does it seem like we're trying to legitimize comic books? Are we trying to make them something legitimate by deconstructing them and going through the layers and seeing things? So I piped in and I was like, well, yeah, absolutely. But what I kind of see is the way I see it is that part of what made comics cool is they weren't legitimate. Okay, comic books were and still are one of the few hobbies you got where it's completely selfish. You're not really creating anything. You're piling up books and you're sorting them out and you're arranging them and you're finding the stories you like. And it's what people forget is that it's a very personal hobby, because basically you pick up a comic book, you sit down and you read, and it's all in your head. And what's amazing is that this comic book came out in 1975 new. If I handed this comic book to somebody that's new in the comics and they read them, they're having the exact same experience I did when I first read it years ago, because it's all here. It's physical. It hasn't changed. It's the same thing. We're reading the same book. Perspectives may be different. People are more educated and maturity. Things have come after this that kind of set a standard for, how comics are now compared to what they used to be. And that's just the deal. That's kind of gone. If you collected comics you know, up until before all these comic book movies came in and stuff, you did it because you had a passion for it. You were there because you liked the comics. You ended up loving the comics. You know, you liked the stories, the characters, the writers, whatever it was. And then every now and then you might look up and run into a few people and, you know, a little cathartic moment where you guys kind of sit there and we got to talk about comics and stuff. Now it's so easy, and now the comics are out there. When I was growing up, I didn't really give a shit what anybody thought. I actually had girlfriends who, like, while I was taking a shower, this happened twice. I took a shower, this is high school. They were in my room, I left them in my room, and there was, like, you know, two girls actually opened up my closet, saw my comic books, and they were out of there, okay? There's a third one who I wished had left. While I was taking a shower, I came out and I smelled smoke, and she had found a box of notes that, you know, notes, not text or anything, notes of a girl that I dated, and I kept them in a shoebox and forgot they were under my bed, and she was burning them in the middle of my room, but I digress. Don't know where that came from. Anyway, but yeah, they were out there, but I still collected the comics. You had the thing of people finding out you had comics, they would use it to emasculate you. It made you look less, and my whole attitude was sort of like, it didn't really bother me, and it didn't become a big issue. I don't want to act like, you know, I went through the trenches back then and was in the middle of a war or something, but I always felt like they were missing out, and time has benefited me because, you know, I got to go see the Avengers movie with a few people who don't read comic books, and one of the times that I saw the Avengers movie, when it was over with and they loved it, they just slowly turned to me and they said, "So is that what it's like reading comics?" And I got to say, every month. Okay? So back to Ghost Critic's question. What I feel is going on is that new people are getting into comics. Comics have been around, we're coming up on 80 years at least, and that's intimidating, okay? I lucked up because I had all this stuff there. I started reading at a young age. I just absorbed this stuff like a sponge. I always found comics here and there. There wasn't really that big of a what's the word I'm looking for, competition to find the comics, except when they came out on the stands, and that's if it was Frank Miller and you know, big names like that, big books that were coming out, everybody wanted. And I got to just kind of absorb this stuff, and I've seen how comics went from something that was just, you know, villain of the month, little bit of just, you know, not really important stories. They're just entertainment, and that was part of the thing that Ghost Critic, I think, was getting at, that this stuff used to be simple entertainment. Now it's very complicated and layered because the audience has grown to adults and stuff, and we're trying to get, you know, they want the new people in and stuff. And it's intimidating to walk in the middle of this, find out these books have so much history, to be around people or hear people on YouTube talk, where, like, if I talk about, you know, like if I talk about Sock Monkey, Tony Millionaire, I end up going back and talking about Robert Crumb with black and white books, the black and white explosion of the independence in the 80s. I mean, the Planet of the Apes movies, anything that was apes, how comics used to, in the 60s and 70s, there was a guarantee that if you had a purple cover or a monkey, ape, whatever, on a book, it would sell, you know what I mean? So all of a sudden, you know, it's gone from just saying, hey, I got this new book and I read it and it was funny, to where some of us are like, yeah, and back in the 60s, you get a purple cover and they had Jimmy Olsen marrying. Can you believe they had Jimmy Olsen marrying an ape right on the cover of a magazine? You know, bestiality, you know. We kind of look at it and stuff. So what I said is that, you know, I've watched people come and go, and you know, and I enjoy anybody comes up there. I love seeing people get into comics. I love seeing people be excited about it. I love seeing people get a hold of Watchmen, Dark Knight Returns, or some other book classic that I've read, and I'm jealous because, like, I would love to have the experience of going back and reading this for the first time again, but I could do it through them. You know, they're all excited and like, wow, and everything like that. So that's good. But the trap that I've seen, and this is what I was saying about legitimizing the thing, people go from trying to legitimize the hobby to where I'm interpreting it like they're trying to legitimize themselves. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? You want to come here and you want to hang and all that stuff. And it's just a thing. It's not even a critique. It's not even me pointing a finger at anybody. There's nobody in particular I'm thinking of. It's just a pattern. And what happens is that I've seen people who, they always end up making that one video where they come on there and they look like they're just all tore up about something, and they apologize for not liking this comic. They've gotten in the trap of taking this very personal hobby where you find things that you like. Well, there's a variety of things out there. They talk about diversity in comics now and all this stuff that's going on, and it used to be that way. You had your horror, you had your genre, you had Herbie, or the Fat Fury is what he was called. It was out there. It was out there. I'm not saying it was all quality stuff, but there's always something. I love the Little Monsters book. You can look that up. That's from the 60s, and it's this little family of like Frankenstein monsters, and I've got Captain Carrot, I got all this stuff. A lot of this stuff where you wouldn't do it. My pizza's done. So, we'll go here and get my pizza while I'm talking. And what happens is that I think it is a trap of YouTube, because you go from being able to explore all these different comics, and it's okay not to like a lot of these comics, to I'm right here. Oh, you're seeing my mess. Anyway, but they go from they want to talk to their friends about the same thing. They got to hurry up and read this same book and things like that. Again, there's nothing wrong with that, but I think you're getting robbed of the hobby and an experience of finding something unique that you like, something that speaks to you, and all of a sudden you got that passion. And the people who come out there and make those videos where they look like they're just all tore up and they're apologizing to their friends for not liking a book and they quit, it's usually when they're gone. There's no more YouTube channel. And what is really strange is that YouTube was such a grand find on here for me that I actually went into mourning over some of these people that were gone. I was like, oh my God, where are they? And I couldn't understand that. This was just people I kind of watched and maybe commented on, and every now and then maybe we would talk on things, and there's people we never talked and they were gone. But they always had that video where they didn't enjoy the hobby, they lost the passion, and I think it's the road, how they got there. They got on here, wanted to be a part of something, didn't get into the personal part of it, didn't find those books that spoke to them or that art that spoke to them, and they didn't come out and they didn't get to express themselves and talk about the things that made them passionate about in comics. Instead, it's about getting into a social status of trying to be higher up or to keep up and stuff, being around people who've read comic books for a while and you're coming in new to it. That is what I thought. And then, as far as comics being legitimate and stuff like that, I kind of went with the antidote of, Eddie Van Halen coming out. When Eddie Van Halen came out, he legitimized rock and roll. You can say metal. I don't consider Van Halen metal. That's a whole other thing here, But when he came out, all of a sudden there's this man with this talent, this style. He was innovative. He was just layered and unique and could do all this stuff, and just the way he arranged music and the way he came out. Bam! You're thinking this should be inspirational, okay? This should make people want to play music and pick up that guitar. And what happened was that I personally think, in my viewpoint, that it stifled rock and roll in the 80s there for a while, because it went from making music and being innovative and seeing what you can do to where everybody wanted to be fancy and play as many notes per second that they could, in order to get a record deal. That's what people wanted. They wanted Eddie Van Halen clones. And that's kind of what I think happened with comics for a while. With Watchmen and Dark Knight, everybody had to be grim, everybody had to be gritty, and that's why when The Flash came out with Mark Waid in the 90s, he was telling Silver Age stories, and nobody realized that these were lighthearted stories. It was great to be the Flash. It was great to be the hero. But, I digress. That's what I mean. You can talk about comics forever and ever and ever, and you read it, and you have a little path. But I think what it is that you don't have to legitimize yourself. You've got your own channel, and people are going to come to your channel if you bring the passion. If you find that one book that speaks to you, even if thousands of people read it, and even if you're the only one that reads it, that's your passion. Talk about that book and that part of it, and the rest kind of comes easy, and you'll kind of gravitate to each other. What I think is that we need to, I personally think that just the way that I understand the hobby and my experience with it, and my experience is the same as a lot of other people, which is ironic, is just relax and have fun with it. If you're not having fun with it, then what are you doing here? Why are you doing this? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm getting at? I mean, it's a great hobby, and I love seeing new people going on. And this is not critiquing anybody in particular's video. That's why I hurried up and went ahead and made this. I actually was going to quit the video when my pizza was done, but, what are you going to do? Anyway, But yeah, that's just a response video, and I was asked to do this. I didn't really want to do it, so I hope people don't pile up on me. I hope people don't read into it. There's no pointing fingers. Nobody's making their videos wrong. It's your channel. But, you know, just kind of take it like, maybe think for a minute here, you know, which comics do I like? Which comics do I love? You know, some comic books are meant to be critiqued in a way to where you get in there and you explore them, like Watchmen and stuff, and what are they saying and what they're doing. Then there's comic books you just read because it's a fucking comic book.